Marika Fischer Hoyt, the artistic director. Dave Parmenter. All right, Alan wants to go next. Alan is another.
Well, on my screen, I was next. I don't have to go next, but I'm Alan Muirhead. I co-host Musica Antiqua and help out where I can in lots of other organizations.
Dave, why don't you go next? Dave Parmenter.
I am the lucky one who gets to experience the event multiple times, both in person, recording it, and of course editing, and on. So marvelous work.
Yay. All right, and then we have Mark Brampton Smith. You want to say a few words?
Yes, well, first of all, I see that David Miller has joined. We were choir boys together from the age of 6 or 7 and so forth. But that means we have another organist on board here. But yeah, that's me: keyboard, organ, piano, harpsichord. Have not and will not do accordion, but yeah. But at any rate, it's been great. A member of Lutheran Memorial, and I'm never there except for food or concerts because I'm playing at Grace Episcopal.
All right, and your friend is David Miller. I don't know if we've met. I haven't.
No. Maybe in commenting, but yeah. Hagerstown, Maryland.
David, if you want to talk, to unmute yourself. If not, we can go on.
Lip read.
Yeah, sorry, I know. Yes, yeah, I'm from Hagerstown, Maryland. I've known Mark for a long time, and I thoroughly enjoy. I play the organ at a Methodist church here in town, Emmanuel United Methodist. I played the violin, and I was going to be at James. I got my degree at James Madison University in music education. Violin was sort of my minor instrument, but I wanted to go to orchestra, so I played a lot of different orchestra, teach students in the orchestra, and then organ was sort of my major instrument, and so I have church jobs and do choral music too. So.
Very cool. And you've known Mark Brampton Smith since you were choir boys?
Very little, yeah. Since we're really little, yeah. Could barely see over the pew.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. You know, the old bit with family, friends, and all that. So we, go back a ways.
Where was that?
Washington, D.C. or D.C. area. I mean, the church was St. Paul's Parish, a very high Anglo-Catholic parish, still going strong in D.C. near Washington Circle. But you know, we were both Virginia. You know, we either had the Maryland suburbs or the Virginia suburbs getting in on that. So, boy, that goes back a few years.
It does, yes, it does. Yeah.
That's long-standing friendships. Let's see. For those of you just joining us, we're kind of going around and introducing ourselves, saying a few words. So if you would like to do that, then just unmute for a minute and just tell us a few words about yourself. Philip Wisbeck, do you want to do that? You want to say a few words about yourself? If not, just shake your head and we'll pass on. If you want to speak, you have to unmute because right now we can't hear you. Do you know how to unmute? Here, I'll invite you to unmute. Philip Wisbeck.
Just a fan of your music.
There you go.
There you go. Now we can hear you.
There you are, Phil. Hi, Phil.
You want to say a few words about yourself?
Oh, I just I learn more every day, and I like what you're doing here.
Oh, good. Well, thank you.
I've suggested such in the past with the Wild Hog and others, and years ago, you know. Anyway, but I hope things turn out terrific.
Okay. Well, thank you. Who else do we have? We have Terry Kelly. Terry, you want to say a few words? If not, don't worry. You don't feel like you have to. Here it is.
Okay, my picture should be up there right now. Maybe not.
I see your name.
There you are, yes.
Hey, Terry.
Hi. Thank you, all of you, for this. I'm really looking forward to the week. And I'm delighted that you put all of this work in. It's pretty clear to me a lot of work went into this.
It's so true. It's so true. Yeah, I've been telling people I'll catch up on my sleep after the 26th.
It's great. It's a wonderful, wonderful set of performances tonight. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. I'm glad you had time to enjoy them and say a few words. Janet Murphy, she's a BATC board member. You have to say a few words.
Yeah, it's been really great to be on the board this year. And I can't believe what happened with this festival. You get lemons and you make lemonade out of it. It's just, I'm not sure what we're going to do next year to rise to the level of what this whole 10 days is going to be like. It's just something. So hot off the presses, at least the people that have texted me today and I've talked to just think it's really wonderful. And most of them had never gone to the festival. So I think we're going to need
It seems like I'm seeing that so much that, of course, the pandemic has resulted in terrible situations, but there are also new skill sets and new opportunities that have arisen that we don't want to leave behind. When we go back to in-person, there are going to be so many ideas and skills that we've learned that will stand us in good stead, even when we have the choice. So yeah, so probably next year will be a hybrid of some kind. That's what I suspect. But yeah. All right. Well, and Janet, I have to say that none of this would be possible without the efforts of the board. And part of what made it possible is that this board really rolled up its sleeves and went to work and made stuff happen. So thank you, Janet, our secretary. Who else? Kathy Lewinsky, do you want to say a few words? We haven't heard from you.
Yes, hi. I'm just a fan. I'm not like a musician. Well, I sing in the Madison Symphony chorus, and we just started virtual rehearsals, which are kind of hard because we're all muted, and Beverly just tells us what to sing. So here we are in our homes singing to ourselves. And I'm still blown away by the last time that this occurred, this reception occurred because of the Ironwood connection. I can't believe that just Bach made it up to my small hometown in northern Michigan. So
I think the connection that happened there was that the Madison Bach musicians had performed up there. And so someone at the Chamber of Commerce there had connected with Kangwon Kim.
Yes.
So she was one of the soloists in last month's program. And so they were still connected. So I think that's why they tuned in to the concert and to the Zoom. So, but yeah, I mean,
that's great. Cool. Like you say, small world.
Yeah, small world. And we have a new person joining us. Martha, we're going around the circle. If you feel comfortable unmuting and saying a few words about yourself, that's great. We'd love to know a little bit about you. And if not, then we'll proceed with here she is. Hey, Martha.
Hi. I had a little bit of technical, me being incompetent, getting onto the Zoom.
Well, I think it's new for a lot of people, but I'm glad you were able to get on.
Yeah, it was just finding the place. I'm sort of a newbie to this. I'm actually a saxophone player, and I have a quartet, and our quartet tried to get ourselves together for last year, and finally did get it together for this year. That's how I even got involved with this. But probably the best musical experience of my life was my high school senior solo, where my piano teacher, Henry de Bruni, who was, he had his master's in Bach, and he was the organist for First Conchurch in Beloit with that huge German organ that they had. We played this Bach flute sonata, and he blew everybody away. I mean, I was along for the ride, but it was a wonderful experience, and I've been a Bach freak ever since. So that's why I'm here.
And for those who don't know it, Martha also serves on our board. We were saying, Janet had mentioned how astounded she was at how the festival had just exploded and have so much on the plate to offer to the community this year. And I said, the only way that would happen is that we have such an active board that rolled up its sleeves. So Martha is one of them too. So thank you, board members, and thank you for your work all year, and also thank you for joining this conversation. And we have someone new, Frank, I don't know who you are. If you feel comfortable unmuting and just saying a few words, we're just having a conversation and getting to know each other a little bit and what our interest is in Bach. So if you feel comfortable, then go ahead and unmute. And otherwise, we will just proceed with our conversation. And feel free at any time during this conversation if you want to just say hello. We'd love to just see who you are. So I tend to prepare questions for the performers in these calls. So since the program began with pieces that featured the organ, my first questions are for Mark.
All right.
Mark, can you speak to the fact that the two movements that we played, those two Symphonia movements, also, do they exist in a form of an organ concerto? I have a recording that has them as the first and last movements of an organ concerto. Do you know about that and how Bach reused these?
Well, you know, well, of course, the whole idea of reusing, it just goes throughout Bach's work and other composers of his time. You know more about that than I do, frankly, and of course that's relevant to the fact that this was a great project because it was new. Both that cantata and both of those movements were new to me. Boy, were they new to me. No, yeah. So I wish I could address that. But as we already know from experience, but having the Sinfonia or this or that movement, basically amounting to an organ concerto, or at least where the organ obbligato is just that very, very significant part. I think of Cantata 29. I mean that is, yeah, and that is one that is so well. The cantata is is performed more often, but that's so well known because of the transcriptions of that already reused music, very successful for solo organ. So, but that's a whole topic to explore for me, and we're all doing it together.
I have another question for you. I've heard it said several times. Well, for those of you who don't know, there are quite a few different organs at Luther Memorial Church. There's a big, huge one in the choir loft. And then the one Mark was playing on is called the steer organ. And then they also have a little continuo organ. What is it about the steer organ? I've heard people say this a few times, that it's particularly good for Bach. Why? What makes it?
You know, that's almost that seems counterintuitive at first. It's an 1893 instrument with I guess a typical specifications for the time, but it unlike I don't want to use the word decadent, but I'll use the word decadent. What happened in organ building, especially getting into the early 20th century, you lost upper work, you lost 2-foot stops, and you certainly lost mixtures and all that sort of thing. You lost brightness and clarity. This organ has, and especially the lower manual, the main manual, the great, wonderful clarity in its stops. And it was, I can't give you the details, but it's restoration, revoicing was done very well. And the promptness of the, it's mechanical action. So you're controlling everything with your fingers. There's no electrical or there's no magnets in between. That helps. It's very responsive. The action's a little heavy, and that can be a challenge. But the placement, I mean, the pipes are right there, and then they're a wonderful spot in the church, one of the transepts. It just the acoustics of the church are fine, but that spot especially. So you've got several elements combining to clarity is the word.
Clarity. I see. All right.
Yeah.
I have a question now for Alan. And Alan, you're a singer. Alan has many hats that he does. He's one of the on the administrative team, the artistic team of Just Bach, but he also is a singer, and so he will pinch hit with the chorale if need be. And I heard his beautiful voice when I had to sing. It was so great to have that backup. But as a singer, one of the points that we had discussed in Bach Around the Clock, putting together this festival, is the point of whether the chorales are in English or in German. So of course, Bach wrote them on German text. And for the concert program today, we presented it as just Bach always does in German. We said the English translation beforehand, so people would have an idea of what the text was about, but we sang it in German. And for the rest of the festival, those chorales are all going to be in English. Can you speak to the different pros and cons of singing them in the language that they were composed for versus it being more accessible to people who don't speak German?
Well, the first point would be, it depends on the translation. Bach wrote them for the German, so the words fit the music quite well. The translation may or may not fit so well, and so I would worry about that. There's a lot to be said for doing it in English so people can understand it, and obviously many of the Bach chorales, even the one you did tonight, I learned that once upon a time as "O Sacred Head Now Wounded." So many of the chorales have been translated or a different set of words put to them, and they're satisfactory in those forms. But I would say that the purist in me says it was written in German, we should do it in German.
Do other of the people gathered here have opinions about that? Because that's something that I have argued about very heatedly with my fellow musicians. Should we do this, the St. John Passion or whatever, in English or German? I mean, Bach was trying to, it was radical then to do it in German rather than Latin. I mean, the point then was trying to do it in the vernacular, the language that people could understand. So German is no longer that kind of language in the United States. So does it then mean we should do it in English? Do people have feelings about that?
Strong feeling that it should be done in German.
You do. And why is that, Terry?
Well, because the verbal texture of it was written in German to go with the music. I just can't see any reason not to do it in German. And I think people can learn the pronunciation and the sound of the German of these chorales is really quite beautiful. So that's my vote. I vote for German.
Of course, you understand German too.
Yeah.
All right. Martha wants to weigh in.
Well, my assistant here wants to help.
Oh, absolutely.
Yay, Kitty.
Yeah, I vote for German too, because I think that the vowels are big and open and they go along with the music. And we're so diphthongy here in English that I don't think English sung is as lovely as German sung. And that's just has nothing to do with the sense of the music at all. It's just the sound of it.
Gotcha. All right, Janet.
I'd stick with German also, in part because with the way we sing today, even if it's in English, you may not be able to understand it very well.
Right.
But certainly would like to add that if it's a group sing or a sing-along, that's where English makes sense for people who don't speak German and couldn't keep up with the music if they're trying to pronounce German along with. So I'm happy for translations or for groups that really can't, maybe even young groups that can't handle trying to figure the German out when they're just trying to sing. Those would be the reasons I'd go to English.
These are all seem like valid points to me. I'm glad I'm not the one having to decide.
Yeah. I agree with that. And I'm thinking almost the same thing. I'm in context because again, we talk about "O Sacred Head Now Wounded," which so many people know and sing and is very beloved, and it's English. It has to be English in that context. And I can't imagine presenting anything choral, whether it be chorale, a whole cantata, in anything but German. I mean, the community chorus, let's say, and we're blessed with some very fine ones. They have the means to do that, and I know that's not true of every group, but it's worth the effort. And I mean, the music is written for those consonants, those vowels, those stresses, all that. It's very important.
Alan,
I'd also add that to the extent, and I admit we have to compromise every now and then, but to the extent that Just Bach would like to be original instruments, or if, you know, quote, original, unquote, historically informed performance practice, it seems to me that that suggests you would have to do it in the original language as well as with the instruments for which it was written.
You guys make real, I'm really glad we're recording this. I'm gonna write all these points down. Thank you for your thoughts. All right, we are joined by Charlie, dedicated cellist who was teaching until 6 minutes ago and has joined our call. Thank you for your dedication, Charlie. Just say a few words. At the beginning, we all just said a few words about ourselves. So if you want to just introduce yourself, and then I have a question for you.
Oh, okay. All right. So I'm Charlie Rasmussen. I'm a cellist and gambist. And I teach, as Marika said, I teach at the Wisconsin Conservatory of Music in Milwaukee. And yeah, I don't know. That's about it.
And you're one of those who play both modern and baroque. Is that true?
That's correct. Yeah, I do. I play both modern and baroque.
Mm-hmm. And yeah. All right. So my question for you, you missed when I was talking to Mark, but I'm going to talk about the role of the continuo. So, so for instance, in these symphonias that we played in the program today, half the time you're playing continuo with the other strings. And so you're having to match bow strokes with your fellow strings. And then the other half of the time, the top strings drop out and you are accompanying, you're doubling the left hand of the keyboard. Can you tell us what that demands of you to switch like that many, many times in the course of one movement? And what kind of intuitiveness you need to be synced into Mark's left hand?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's actually something that we get a lot as bowed, continuo players. And I remember actually when I started playing baroque cello, I did some work with Brent Wissick. If anybody knows who Brent Wissick is, he's a cellist and gambist in North Carolina and teaches at Chapel Hill. And what he said was, and this is really good advice, sticks with me to this day, is he said you have to think about the context of the ensemble to determine your continuo playing. So he said, for example, if you're playing with a harpsichord, he said you need to add a little bit more sustain to the sound because the harpsichord has a very sharp attack but doesn't have the sustain. He said when you're playing, for example, with an organ, then you're going to want to add more articulation, but you won't need as much sustain to hold through it. And so I think that it all comes down to the type of, the ensemble that you're playing with. And then of course, when playing with the strings, yes, that's another consideration is you want to match articulations with them. And so the way I kind of treated it was to play the parts with organ maybe a little bit more soloistically, just because I was really the only other one playing at those parts, just so that the part would come out. But then of course with the ensemble, the goal was blending together. But yeah, I'm always mindful of the group, of the ensemble that I'm playing with to determine the continuo sound.
All right, well that leads to another question. So if you are adapting your technique to which ensemble you're with, whether it's the other strings or the keyboard, it's not obvious in your part which one is which, right? So do you mark in with organ, or do you just know after you've rehearsed?
I usually listen. So you listen to it and then I just add little marks here or there. So yeah, to know where those parts are. And yeah, and in this one too, in this Sinfonia, the nice thing with it was that the part was very, it kind of just flowed through the whole thing. My part was flowed pretty much through the whole thing. So I wasn't, like I said, I didn't change too much. I just brought out the parts a little bit more, where it was just me playing with organ.
I see. Okay. And then that leads to another question with Mark. What do you look for when you're playing something that virtuosic and demanding? And at half the time, your only support is Mr. Cello. What do you look for in a continuo cello to support you? Is it the kind of thing, I was watching this recording and I'm watching your left hand, I'm like, that's exactly what Charlie is playing. if your right hand gets busy enough, you have a security, like I could always just leave the left hand out because Charlie's going to cover it, or how does that work?
Yep. Yeah. In fact, on occasion when I'll listen to a recording, well, you might, a recording, you just might not even be able to tell if the organist is playing the left hand, except in certain places. I think we all believe in doing what's practical and necessary to get the job done. And there was one place that I absolutely had to say, forget it. And they were D octaves. Like, there's no way. I mean, they're leaps, and I just wasn't going to land on them. And I could have dropped out off the left hand more, but it was just going by the music, it seemed appropriate, best to play along at the same time. But so in this situation with this ensemble, I only had the sense of the music. I was articulating each note, so there weren't decisions to be made. That's different than with more extended recitatives, for example, where there's a lot of planning needed, just basic things like how long are we going to hold the note, or that sort of thing. The decision making, I guess you'd say, was not a factor, but it's I just take the practical route sometimes. When we did the harpsichord / organ concerto a little earlier on, there I was dropping the left hand out a lot because one, it had been rewritten. It was a different piece, a lot of changes, and two, it just wasn't necessary.
Right, you're just doubling each other. So
yeah.
All right.
Could I ask if Mark used the pedal much on the organ, or just use the left hand?
In this case, I was just using the left hand. I think one place, an extended note, I just let the pedal do that.
Okay.
And I was trying I mentioned a place with D octaves. I was trying that with the pedal, and that sounds simple, but then it meant the left hand was jumping up, and I was having a problem with that. And so that's when I said, forget it. But in general, I will use. I'll just assign stuff to my feet. This organ, by the way, has a very unstandard pedal board, which I'm not used to.
Oh, that's a flat one.
Risky, yeah, flat, and only goes up to D, and everything's shifted in position, and so yeah.
Janet.
So this begs the question, you two, when was this music written down? Did the editors write it down? Charlie, was there any continuo part to be had? Did somebody just figure out when you're duplicating or when you're playing a unique line?
Well, actually, these parts were made by Marika. Thank you for making them. Yeah. So for this, what I did was I just took the edition that Marika sent and listened to a recording with it. I mean, I'll be honest, I haven't actually done the research to say I looked at an original source in this instance. I took the edition that was, but Marika, would have done that in order to create the edition.
The reason I had to make an edition is because the original was scored for quartet and organ like we had, but also winds. So there would have been, I think it's 2 oboes and a bassoon in there. And most of the time they were doubling the strings, but there were quite a few times when they had unique parts. So I had to make an edition where the strings cover it all. So that's why we had to do that. Yeah, this year has created a lot of situations like that where I just we can't bring in winds or singers or brass players. We have to just go with keyboards and strings. So we're adapting. But yeah, I've had the conversation tonight with Mark, and also you'll hear it in the opening remarks for the Friday night concert, which is a concert by Mark Fink and Bruce Bengtson. And they too are playing arrangements. And so I asked them, Bach arranged his own parts quite frequently. And I referenced that I used to get into frequent arguments with John Barker, he said, if Bach didn't make the arrangement, you shouldn't. If he didn't write it, then you shouldn't. So I used to get into arguments with John Barker all the time. So I just ask other people what are their opinions. And it seems like the reality is that composers used what they had on hand, and would reuse things for different occasions. And so, I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to lose sleep over that we performed this Symphonia with strings and organ only without the oboes.
Who did the arrangement for the Brandenburg 3?
That is a pre-existing arrangement by a woman named Lynn Latham, and she has a whole business where she takes popular tunes like that and arranges them for string quartet or trio or whatever.
Yeah.
Quartets use that for wedding gigs.
Yeah. No, I thought that one turned out very well. You could hear some of the inner voices that get lost in the bigger ensembles.
Yeah.
By the way, that is the Dingle Peninsula behind me for St. Patrick's Day.
And this has nothing to do with what we're supposed to be here for, but Alan, you are quite a photographer, are you not?
I try to be, yes.
Photo you've taken yourself?
Yeah.
He's been posting, he's up to day 75 on Facebook, posting one of his photos every day. And they could be National Geographic.
That's today's photo for St. Patrick's Day.
It all makes sense.
Right.
All
Beautiful.
the puzzle. All right. Well, those were the questions I had. Well, I guess we should ask, since we have Dave here, Mr. Drone, do you want to, this is a different crop of people than when we last talked about that. Do you want to just give them an explanation of how we have that amazing footage of the church, in and out of the church?
Absolutely, yes. And I'll cover myself up here so you have a better look at the stained glass. You might notice, looking at the stained glass view, you're looking down. And that is one of my drone shots. I flew the drone inside the church a couple different occasions. This is my second drone. I'll just throw out the first drone was a little less sophisticated, and I fired it up and it crashed into the pews. This one, the new drone, is a much better piece of equipment, and I've had great fun. At Christmas, I flew down the center aisle with the nave dark, and I had candles positioned at the end of the pews for Silent Night. And I did the same, of course, with lights on for this recording. Hopefully it was tasteful enough for this particular occasion. But the amount of the ceiling in the church allows for a fairly safe drone flight. I'll just throw on it tells me how many satellites it's connected to. By the end of a flight, I was connected to 13 different satellites reading through the roof of the church, so quite interesting. And I'll close with one of the challenges that Pastor Pullman, has given me is to, with the drone, take individual close-ups of each of the figures in that stained glass, which is on the north end of the nave in the balcony. And that will be fun at some point. So something to look forward to. And thank you all. I've got to drop out here, but
before
it's
you
a
go,
real
I just
pleasure. Yes.
How many hours of drone training did you need to get under your belt before they would trust you to put that thing inside with those stained glass windows?
I guess I better not say.
Well, you had to get special clearance from the pastors, or how did that get arranged?
Yes, basically. So it.
Well.
Yeah, enough said, I think.
Okay. Well,
don't want to get into any trouble with the FAA.
Oh, I see. Oh, I didn't know it was a loaded question, but anyway, it's fabulous. It's a fabulous addition to the videos that we put out every month at Just Bach. So thank you for your wizardry with the videography and the audio work and the drones, and delivering the thumb drives to my door within 24 hours. It's just, Dave, you're a heavy lifter of on the
Oh,
team.
bless you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for your talent in making this experience possible.
Yeah, it's wonderful working out. Well, thank you for joining us, Dave. I don't know
You
what
bet.
people.
Take care.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.
I don't know what people's, usually for the Just Bach evening Zoom calls, we usually keep it to about half an hour, which is what we're a little bit over that now. So I don't know if people need to go, we can bring this to a close. Are people feeling complete? Because we're going to do this many times over the next 10 days. So you can, if you think of other questions, you can bring it. We'll be doing this again tomorrow. So tomorrow will be, the daily program is posted on the website, and then the evening event will be a keynote address with Jonathan Overby of Wisconsin Public Radio. I invited him to do a keynote speech, but he said he wants to have it be more of a keynote conversation. So I'll be throwing him softball questions and he'll be fielding them. And then he'll also be taking questions from the chat. So if you're interested in his perspectives on things, then please come back tomorrow night.
Is that also at 7?
7 o'clock. Yeah, all the evening events this week, this 10 days are going to be at 7 o'clock, and the links are all posted on the BATC website.
Can I ask Charlie a question?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Charlie, more about the first violinist. She looked like she had a gamba bow. It looked like it was a different bow, but she holds her bow like way up high, not from the frog, but way up in the middle. And I know she has long arms. I have my violin students who wear short little arms to hold the bow up high like that for balance. But do you know why that's a special bow she has, or is that a technique that she's using at all? Or?
Yeah, it's they're baroque bows, and so they're designed to be held up higher, and I mean, we were all using them. I mean, and of course, you know, different players will hold them in different places. Some hold them a little closer to the frog, some hold them a little further up. I mean, it kind of depends on the bow. I mean, because also when you get into baroque bows, there are so many different styles of baroque bows. So, like, for example, the bow I'm playing on is how would I describe it? It's modeled after an Italian violin bow from the 1720s that then they kind of like the maker, you know, made it cello scale. You know, so a little bit bigger, shorter. You know, and so for baroque bows, there's a whole like list of like different types of them, and so that will kind of determine how players hold them and use them.
Are they more for baroque playing? Is it like louder or softer than a normal regular standard?
I'm gonna go get mine.
Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe she played the violin. I don't know if she was a violinist. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and so, you know, so what baroque bows do, so one of the biggest differences, I mean, it depends again on the bow, but they're curved out. And so something that does is it makes it much easier, I think, to do string crossings and things like that. So whereas on the tort style bows, which is like a modern bow, there's a lot more, I think there's a lot more effort involved in string crossings. On baroque bows, it's a lot less. And they're also a lot lighter with less hair, so it's easy to move pretty quickly. And some players in like the 1600s used very short bows that were very light, and they could play, I mean, incredibly fast notes on that just because of the lightness of the bow. Yeah, here's Marika. Let's turn it over to her. She has a good comparison.
So here, this is a modern tort bow. It has an ivory frog, but other than that, it's just a standard issue modern bow. And you can see that the curve of the bow is slightly in a U shape. It's slightly bold like that. And here is how the tip looks. It's almost a 90-degree angle of the stick meeting the hair. But here's my baroque bow.
It is.
The frog is quite different. The curve is more like that kind of curve, and the tip is like that.
Oh, yeah, less of an angle.
Yeah. So what it does is it makes the engineering of a modern bow, all the changes that happened as period instruments became modern instruments were designed to project more. So we were no longer playing in a small salon or a church. We were playing in big concert halls, and we needed our sound to project. So what we gave up is intimacy and nimbleness and gained projection. So the point of this design of the modern bow is to be able to sustain your sound all the way to the tip. Whereas the point of a Baroque bow is that there's a very big difference between the sound you get at the frog and the sound you get at the tip. This is going to be louder. This is going to be softer. In modern technique, you're trying to counteract that natural tendency. You're trying to be able to play so that no one listening to you could tell whether you're at the frog or the tip. That's exactly opposite in Baroque. You're trying to get differentiation between frog and tip and up and down bows. You're trying to mimic speech. We do not speak like this. It's very boring. If we would speak like that, we speak in rhythms with strong and weak and strong, you know, and the bow is trying to mimic that. And so it's a better instrument. It's a better tool for achieving that effect.
So with your forefinger, can you bite down on the string with that type of bow, still pressing down with your in your bow? So when you're bowing, you're trying to dig in to get like to accentuate or to.
I mean, you can dig in with either one.
Yeah, no, that's what. Can you do it with a Baroque bow as well as easily?
Oh, yeah, you can press, but whereas with a modern bow, you might press enough that the stick might come near the hair. That won't happen.
Yeah, no. Well, I just wonder if you get that same result, you can still kind of, because the bow's going the opposite direction now, to bite down in it, you know.
You can bite down. In fact, now you're getting on me on a topic that I really am fascinated by. But the point of being able to articulate like speech is that you're supposed to be able to mimic any sound that the voice makes. So any vowel sound and any consonant sound. So one of my first lessons when I was learning Baroque was that they would give us words and we had to match the articulation of our bow to the word. So if the word was Kyrie, we would have a very definite attack than if we were saying Eleison would be a completely different stroke. And we were, the ideal would be that how you play your notes, you should be able to almost tell what the text is that you're matching.
Neat. That's excellent. I love that. It's pretty neat. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a topic that I could talk a long time on.
Look for one of those bows. I had a bowed Salter. Yeah, I had a bowed Salter at one time that had that kind of bow, but but for the violin, I might be interested to try that. So
it really makes a difference. And like your question about whether one holds it at the frog or choke up on it a little bit. The bow when I was first getting back into Baroque playing, that bow, it felt more comfortable. The balance of the bow, because each bow has a different point of balance on it. And for that bow, it did feel more effective to hold it up a little bit further. But on this one, it just feels better to hold it nearer to the frog. So
yeah, it's a balance issue.
Yeah, exactly. It's the balance. Yeah. So
well, neat. I couldn't really tell from the video, but I was watching it on my phone, so it was a little tiny. But I could.
Yeah, right.
Nice, but it was nice. But it's beautiful playing. I mean, you guys are such a great group. I mean, you're like all listening to each other, and it just Mark's articulation on the organ is very good too. Way to go, Mark, for
Hey, Mark.
It's not all legato, but I mean, you made it more very nicely. It was beautiful. I think because my Bach concert got canceled due to the COVID thing, so we didn't do it this year. We've been doing it for years and years, and so I'm Bachless for my own separate. So
that's bad. That's bad. I hope you get more with Bach in your life soon.
Well, yeah. Well, we just are because of they couldn't do it in the church, so they were closed down. But anyway, but next year we'll be doing a big festival again. So
there you go.
All righty. Thank you very much for doing this.
Right. Thank you so much for joining us, and it was lovely to see you all. And hope you can come back to some of the other evening events and daytime events for this festival.
Thank you.
See you another time. Bye.
Okay. Good to see you all. Bye.
Bye-bye.